couple of years ago, he contacted me on some other things, but I listened to him for 8 hours straight, man. His contacts, he always got this radio program for 30-some-odd years that he's researched the stuff that man that's hidden from us, and with his contacts, I was absolutely shocked at some of the stuff he told me. And tonight he's going to be talking about the Egyptians in the Grand Canyon, and I'll let him tell his contacts. I'll let him tell everything because he's a wealth of knowledge, and he's a great friend. And Drew, thank you for sharing your knowledge with us. And with that, here's Drew Ott.
So Terry was gracious enough, and Mark, just another round of ovation for Terry and Mark. I mean, all the work that they've done, phenomenal. Thank you guys. I don't know what I said last year, but they wanted me back this year. But they said, you didn't talk about the Grand Canyon. Pick a subject and I'll talk about it. 35 plus years in radio. And my radio show is called The Story Behind the Story. We're the original story behind the story. I don't want to talk about me, but I'll tell you something. It's an outgrowth of asking the questions, things that the mainstream media do not want to talk about. The Kreiders of the world. Finding the answers that seem to not be important for mainstream media to touch. So the story behind the story delved into things that I thought were very important, things like MK Ultra, Area 51, those type of things that were taboo to the mainstream media. I got to tell you, I started broadcasting from Little Cedar City KSUB radio in the early 90s. I just wanted a voice, because what is our free speech all about? First Amendment? First, not second. As important as keeping and bearing arms is, number one is free speech. If we don't have free speech, we don't really have anything. So, I was offered an hour, breaking over into 2 hours to broach the topic of unexplained phenomena. I was fortunate enough, whoever listened, we got notified that I got notified or nominated for a Peabody Award. Now, in radio, that's like the Academy Award. In our small little market, and because I've written a few books, I had a literary agent, her name is B.K. Nelson in Palm Springs. BK said, guess what? I've got a syndication offer for you. Remember back in the day, little Ruth Westheimer, the sex doctor, remember her?
Yeah.
BK Nelson syndicated Dr. Ruth. So she had the contracts all lined up, a major company, Clear Channel, same one as Dr. Ruth was on. She flew me down to Palm Springs, we're going to sign the contract, and here I have a picture somewhere in my archives. Dr. Ruth comes about right to here. We have a picture with the two of us, the long and short of it. But why I'm telling the story is because Dr. Ruth made a lot of money as a radio show host. I could make a lot of money also. The contract was extremely lucrative. The signing bonus was over 500 G's. But I read the fine contract, the fine print. I had to agree to be censored. My content had to pass a board. So why am I even on the radio? If it's free speech, there's no censorship. My agent said, it's okay, we'll work it out. No, it's a deal killer. You strike that out of the contract or I'm not signing. See, that's what we're talking about controlled media. See what I'm saying? So things like this where we get up and my wife says, you never know what's going to come out of your mouth. I wasn't planning on talking about this. But it's important to understand the reason for a free gathering and exploring these things and asking the questions. Listen, I may not agree with Mr. Kreider and everything he says. I may not agree with UFOologists, but I will die defending their right to say it.
Yeah.
I just ask for equal time to talk about what I believe too. All right, fair enough? So, the assignment was true. We need to hear about the Egyptian tunnels. Ooh. This is probably the biggest story that I've ever covered in my years of alternative media. For so many reasons, because it overlaps so much. Okay? Part of being, call it humble or whatever, is being grateful for those who've come before you. I need to start out this presentation by paying honor to a guy you probably never heard of, Dr. Melvin J. Laney. What's that? Mike's in the way?
I got it.
Dr. Laney and I forged a friendship early on. Why? I don't know. Providence? Perhaps. Dr. Laney is probably one of the smartest men ever to walk this earth, in my opinion. 5 PhDs, a Juris Doctor, plus a medical doctor. Five parts. So anytime he kind of put me under his wing, knew about my radio topics, and basically became a guardian angel to me. And believe me, when you talk about stuff like this, you better have a protector. His level of security, keep in mind this man, his company that he formed, provided the security for the Pentagon. That's the high level of security he has. High security clearance. Thank you, Dr. Laney. Let's begin by looking at the history of where this all began. Please don't take my word for anything. I hope you're saying, this is so well. I'm going to check it out myself. I want you to do your own research. I got to tell you, 15 years ago, there was a lot more information on this that was objective. Now you look at this topic, and it's all hoax, 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 nonsense, nonsense, nonsense. Well, I'm here to tell you, it isn't nonsense, for what that's worth. I'll let you make your decision. The picture here, black and white. Do you think they had photography back then? This is 1869, when this one-armed major, John Wesley Powell, this guy must be crazy, to go down the river of no return in little boats. You ever been to Page, Arizona, the Powell Museum? You see those little boats? Woo! Not knowing what's around the next bend, but you hear all the water. Oh. He lost his arm in the Civil War, so he's one-armed. This picture was actually taken in his second expedition down the Grand Canyon in 1871. He braved it once in 1869. What did he have to go back and do it again in 1871, 2 years later? Why? The answer to that is in his report to Congress. It's what he discovered there. He found a cave around the one bend. He put in and hiked up, got up to it, and went and entered it. And he, in his journal and his report to Congress, incredible Egyptian artifacts. So, guess who got involved and funded the 1871 expedition? The Smithsonian Institute, the Smithson family. For the sole purpose of photographing it all. So this picture here is with their chief guide, pal with, his name is Tao Gu, the chief of the Paiute tribe. He's there with them as the guide. They're at the confluence where the Virgin River comes into the Colorado. You know where that's at, down south? That's where this picture was taken. Now, I want to say that the pictures I'm going to show you came from Dr. Laney, directly from the Smithsonian. He had high security clearance, and he wanted the story told about what's really under the Grand Canyon. This is why he broke it and why he gave the information to me. This is one of the pictures. Back in the 1871, it's all black and white photography. Here's one of the pictures that are in the, have been pictures released by the Smithsonian, the National Park Service. You can see these are pretty much common knowledge. This is a picture of a Smithsonian employee known only in the record as Dellen Baugh. Whether that was Dylan Bow or Dellen Baugh, one whole name. But he's sitting on the sandbar contemplating. This is in the location Ladora Canyon on the Green River. So the Green River's very placid, you know, it goes, it's pretty easy. But he's knowing, you see, that he may not survive. This is a kind of a fool's errand. I don't know what type of high pay he got, but it probably wasn't enough. Dellen Baugh in his journal reflected upon the inherent risks and dangers to prove the pharaohs. That's in the record. So here is the Red Canyon on the Green River. Ever wonder where Flaming Gorge Reservoir got its name? You know, the big Flaming Gorge, the Red Canyon, there it is. If you spend time at the Utah section of Flaming Gorge Reservoir, you'll recognize the scenery before it was all flooded. Okay? Now if you look closely, I'll move, well maybe I won't move. Down here on the corner, you see the boats. This is the last safe place to go before the Colorado jumps in, or the Green River jumps into the Colorado. Notice the size of these little boats. They're not much bigger than a canoe. They're small. Just amazing to me. This picture was, again, 1871. They're still in the Green River. Look how it's very slow moving, it's relaxing, it's placid. The Powell's native guide labeled this, quote, the point of desolation. You go past this point, those braves that went down with canoes, they never came back. Point of no return. So there again we see the boats there in the foreground of the picture. Those of you that float the Green River below Flaming Gorge Dam, you'll recognize this background, right? So they're ready now, they're prepped to go past the point of desolation, to go into Marble Canyon and start the Colorado experience. Now, here's an interesting little picture. This is John Wesley Powell's boat. He christened it the Emma Jean, after his sweetheart. He figured, well, if Emma Jean can't bring me home safely, nothing can. Notice his chair. He wanted to be on top. He has like safety straps. He's strapped in, one arm again, and notice the lantern, coal oil lamp was all they had for illumination. And on the right side, his life jacket. Ooh. I guess they still had to have life jackets when you run the river back then. All right. Well, of course, the Smithsonian never took any pictures, but they took notes. In 1875, 4 years after they got back, this artist named R.A. Mueller was commissioned by the Smithsonian. They did a tintype engraving of what's called a typical rapid scene that the POW boats encounter daily. Look at that. Flat out amazing that they even survived that. This way. I'm right in the middle. Go. Well, Terry's like going to say, okay, turn the camera. Can you still see? Can you still see? Okay. All right. So let me skip over the narrative, and that's the historical background. So from 1871, the Smithsonian, according to all the records, all their photographic equipment, they took exactly 1,752 pictures. Of those 1,752 pictures, only about 35 was the trip. Do the math. Over 1,700 pictures of what? Well, the next player in the saga is Mr. G.E. Kincaid. G.E. Kincaid. Here's his picture in the military. He was a U.S. Marine. Yeah, go Marine. He was employed by the Smithsonian Institute. Kincaid retraced Powell's route and in fact entered into the cave in the year 1909. This is historically factual. Not this is, you can trace all this and prove it all out. Used to be the internet was full of this information. It's hard to find it now. It really is. I had my blog was atruot.com. My story on all of this included hundreds of photographs from Dr. Laney that I exposed this story in a big way. It was, I don't know how many hits a day, it was in the thousands. And you know you're pretty much on track when half of the people are calling you a hoaxer and the other half are saying, wow, fantastic information, ties a lot of things together for me. You can't please all the people all the time. But Kincaid's route is documented. He didn't actually keep going because he had artifacts now. And him and his companion hiked out of the Grand Canyon with artifacts. They made it and did an interview that was published in April 5th of 1909 in the Arizona Gazette newspaper. The Arizona Gazette newspaper, the Phoenix Gazette was the morning edition, the Arizona Gazette was the evening edition, which is now the Arizona Republic newspaper. And you know what? I found it 15 years ago in their archives, in their microfiche. It ain't there anymore. Why? Because it's a hoax. We don't perpetrate hoaxes at a newspaper. Here's a copy, Arizona Gazette, front page news, April 5th, 1909. Was this all some grand hoax? As deep as the Grand Canyon itself? Sadly, many, many people believe it to be so. I hate to read things, but this, when I'm getting pictures of me on live stream, I gotta wear a girdle. You look fatter on film? Sorry. Oh, it's the angle. It's the angle. Thank you. Give me the good angle. I'm sorry. I'm going to quote verbatim now from this article, April 5th. Quote, "The latest news of the progress of the explorations of what is now regarded by scientists as not only the oldest archaeological discovery in the United States, but one of the most valuable in the entire world, which was mentioned some time ago in the Gazette. Evidence was brought to the newspaper yesterday by G.E. Kincaid, the explorer who found the great underground citadel of the Grand Canyon during his trip from Green River, Wyoming, down the Colorado in a wooden boat, and he traveled back to Yuma several months ago. He brought evidence of the artifacts. How many have ever heard of the greatest archaeological discovery in the world? Few people have. The story is not. Terry, so this is, this is true, you're going to talk about the Grand Canyon. Okay. Yeah, it is. Let me skip to the next paragraph. According to the story related to the Gazette by Mr. Kincaid, the archaeologists of the Smithsonian Institute, which is financing his expeditions, have made discoveries which almost conclusively prove that the race which inhabited this mysterious cavern hewn in solid rock by human hands was of Oriental origin. Oriental. Possibly from Egypt, tracing back to Ramses. Really? If their theories are borne out by the translation of the tablets engraved with the hieroglyphics, the mystery of the prehistoric peoples of North America, their ancient arts, who they were and from whence they came, will be solved. Egypt and the Nile and Arizona and the Colorado River will be linked by a historical chain running back to ages, which staggers the wildest fancy of the fictional. I say on my radio show all the time, ladies and gentlemen, my name is really true. That's on my birth certificate. It's my real name. And so many times the truth is much, much more entertaining than fiction. I keep saying all the time, I can't make this stuff up. I can't write a fictional book that is so powerful as this story. Okay, I'm done. Let's go. That's a teaser. I'm sorry. All right. So, by means of an artist, and based on, again, the detailed explanations by Mr. Kincaid, he described it as a mile-long tunnel. He explored a mile in. I want you to get your head around this. A mile in, underground, he estimates 1,480 feet below the surface. 1,480 feet deep, okay? The long main passage has been delved into to find another mammoth chamber from which radiates scores of passageways like the spokes of a wheel. You get the mental picture here of what he's discovering? This massive chamber is big, as in giants live there. The Bible tells us there were giants in the land in those days. I personally believe the Bible to be true. I've been on enough archaeological digs in the Holy Land. A lot of it brought by Dr. Laney, asking me to be a part of it, were my jaw drops. Things have been found in the Palestinian sector that just don't make it into the news. Those evil, terrible Palestinian Christians, how evil they are. Oh my goodness. Archaeological evidence proving, I'm just going to say this, I'm not going to hold back, proving Genesis chapter 6. Those of you who don't know, you go to read your Bible, crack it open, read Genesis chapter 6. The fallen sons of God, the angels, the fallen angels, led by the singer, the musician named Lucifer, fell to earth, went into the earth. They are in the earth, in the Hebrew tradition, in a place called Sheol. Sheol means hell or Hades, right? In the earth, and they came up on the surface at times and seduced earth women. They found them to be pretty sexy, and earth women are pretty cool. I'm almost a giant. My son used to say, don't mess with me because my daddy's almost a giant. I don't have 6 fingers, but I'm almost a giant. So, we see these myriad of caverns coming out of a spoke of a wheel. So, in further excavations after 1909, the rest of the story behind the story is, when all this leaked with the Gazette, the cat was out of the bag. Oops. Oops. Too much knowledge. Damage control had to happen. You ever remember seeing that segment of the Indiana Jones show, Raiders of the Lost Ark, where they bring in these crates and start crating up all the archaeological things that are being found, right? Pretty much that's what happened. They brought a rail spur out to the point, and by a series of cranes and other means, brought out untold numbers of archaeological relics. Put them in crates, put them on a rail car, boom, shipped them to the Smithsonian, where they sit today, hidden away in dusty archives. You know, the Smithsonian has miles of underground archives. I mean, incredible. Dr. Laney invited me. He says, I can get you in there and show you. I said, I don't want to go there. I don't. That's the last thing on my list to do. I'm just saying. So the question, like I heard asked of Robert Kreider, and by the way, Robert, good job. Fantastic presentation. Very good job. The big question is, why are they hiding this? What does it matter? Let's tell the truth about these beings. Let's tell the truth about them. Why? I asked this question of Dr. Laney dozens of times. Why? What are they hiding? The answer was always the same. They're hiding God. They don't want you to find God, because when you do, guess what? You become empowered and you don't need government anymore. Is that radical or what? Can't have that. So certain stories that are so important, they hide them. And they make up a false narrative. Oh, Dr. Ott, that's all conspiracy theory. Self-evident. Becomes self-evident. So, let's go on to the next. There's the picture of the article, Explorations in the Grand Canyon. Here is the picture taken. Now, again, by the time Kincaid took his pictures, There was color. There was there was no longer black and white. So here's the picture of the cave entrance. Now, the location of this, I understand from Dr. Laney, is in the heart of the restricted area of the Grand Canyon. Now, I don't know. I haven't been down there to try and find out. But I understand, and there are some people who may have better insights. There are certain parts of the Grand Canyon you do not go into. Period. They say it's unsafe for whatever reason, this and that. It's a national park. Why is it unsafe? You know, you can go see Old Faithful and the hot springs in Yellowstone. You don't want to get burnt, but you can still see them. Why are there parts of the Grand Canyon that you can't see? Here's a different picture, a different angle. You can see how it goes in. So here's the Journal of Powell report to Congress describing the talus slope, the rocks, the slick rock he had to hike up into, and you can see what was in that crevice. That's in the congressional record. So here is based on Kincaid's details. Here's a schematic he drew of what he experienced inside this cave. Remember, I read in the journal entry, the Gazette entry, there's the spoke, the big grand chamber, massively tall, with other tunnels going out from it. You see it looks like a smartphone with red dots. That's an interesting little piece right there. I'll show you some specific pictures about that. But you see the other places going off. There are little catacombs full of artifacts that boy, would make Egypt jealous. Part of my research, the ambassador in 1910, 1911, from Egypt, I didn't put his picture up here, but he was upset. He brought notice to the United States government that this was Egypt's possessions. The president responded, what part of location don't you understand? It's American. They wanted all these artifacts sent back to Egypt. Okay, look at the smooth, how those tunnels are smooth. Can you see okay? Look closely on the sides of those tunnels. The dirt that was filled, actually, they go down many feet. So a big 9 or 10 foot individual could walk upright in those tunnels. What incredible technology did that? Look closely on all the walls. You see hieroglyphics that are not Egyptian, by the way. They're earlier than Egyptian. They're more like the language of the Phoenicians, the Chaldeans. Even the origin of the Chinese characters are here, dating back about 1700 BC. This is how ancient this really is. So we see all these markings on the walls, all the way down. Now, according to Dr. Laney and the photographs from the Smithsonian, these are all from the Smithsonian archives. That's how I got them. This particular tunnel starts to go down, down, down. He believes, and the ancient linguists say this, all of these markings on the wall are warnings. Don't go further. Don't go further. You're not going to like what you find down there. But Kincaid, explorer, went on down. And in the Phoenix Gazette article, he went down this passageway, got to a certain point, and was overpowered with the incredible smell of snakes. And anybody ever hear or found a den of rattlesnakes in the wintertime? I have. There's an unmistakable smell when a bunch of snakes get together. It smells like a bunch of cucumbers have been sliced up. There's a definite smell. It's not pleasant. This is what he was experiencing there. And it got so overwhelming, and there was such a pervasive sense of evil, they left that alone. Going down, down, down. Is this exciting or interesting or what?
Yeah.
You know, and make sure, keep going, keep going. If you tell me I'm done, I'll wrap up. Here's on the Egyptian panels. Sons of Joseph. You know what this is talking about? This is fairly new and it's Egyptian. Since the Rosetta Stone was discovered, they've been able to decipher this completely. Anybody know what the Rosetta Stone is? Able to now interpret Egyptian hieroglyphics. Guess what this is telling? A guy that's found in Genesis, Joseph. Remember that story? What is it? What's the biblical story? He's sold into slavery by his jealous brothers. Has a coat of many colors, right? He's thrown into a cistern, and they wanted to kill him. They thought, wait a minute, let's not be too hasty. He's in the cistern. Let's not kill him. Let's just sell him and profit off of it. Sell him into Egypt. What this story tells is in that cistern, he found an artifact. Didn't know what it was, but it was ancient. It's talking about, it was crystalline. It was made of some kind of crystal. Didn't know what it was. I can just imagine he tucked it into his tunic. They hauled him out, put him in bondage, sold him to slave traders, went into Egypt. You know the rest of the story, right? It's biblical. Something happened where Joseph was able to gain an audience at the high level with Pharaoh. This is the story behind the story of the Bible. The Bible just gives you a thumbnail sketch. This is telling the story. Evidently, this artifact activated an energy field under the Sphinx of Egypt. Imagine that. Pharaoh was like, and you're able to interpret my dream? 7 fat cats, 7 years of plenty, 7 years of famine, and you have this? You are my grand vizier. You're my second in command. You're my right-hand guy. Genesis account says this, and so apropos to our lives. Sometimes evil things happen so good things can occur in His will. It's a wonderful sermon there. Joseph didn't sit around, oh, woe was me. That's it. That was divinely appointed. He had to find that thing, and the rest is biblical history. And it ties into us. So when I had this blog and had these pictures and the explanations of what this said, I had Egyptologists come back and say, oh, you photoshopped that. That's what it says, but you... No, I don't know Egyptian. Give me a break. I'm just posting. Don't kill the messenger, Mr. Kreider. Yeah, right? Don't kill the messenger. It is what it is. Accept it or not. So, what happened next in the narrative? As I showed this, and I had a lot of people weighing in on my blog. This is an amazing story. How in the world Did Joseph come to the Nile? Or come up, did he have a boat? Was it papyrus boats? How did he come up the Colorado River? You're missing the story. He didn't come over the ocean. He came through a tunnel system. That's a jaw dropper. Part of the narrative explains that the ancient ones had interconnect. Every continent is interconnected. Under the oceans, it doesn't matter. These tunnel systems connect. And they have advanced what they call chariots, which is a means of transportation. I'll guess with you how they happen. We've recreated, right, bullet trains underground. How many of you think Air Force One is really how the president travels? It's one of the ways. But how can the president or the vice president be in Washington than be in LA in a conference an hour later? A Secret Service agent told me off the record about the high-speed bullet trains that our government uses. Not only go from coast to coast, but internationally. Why don't you know this? I submit this information is one of the reasons why it was hidden. Knowledge is power to those who want to remain in power and keep the masses ignorant. See, we're not going to tell you. We're your benefactors. We're from the government, and we're here to help you. One of Kincaid's most amazing things he said in this article, and I won't read the whole thing to you, was whoever was here had an amazing ability for metallurgy. This is, you might recognize this, this is the jackal-headed god Anubis. This particular statue is in the Smithsonian. Dr. Laney said it, it's verified. It's hardened copper. It's copper. Wait a minute, they're not supposed to know about hardening copper back then. They did here in the American continent. Anubis, the jackal-headed god. And if you understand Egyptology, this is the god that does shape-shifting. He appears, and you know, the Paiute Indians call shape-shifting, they call them Anubis. I have Paiute Indian friends who've witnessed shape-shifting, and they call it Anubis, Anubis, Anubis. Hey, it's so phonetically similar to Anubis, it's not even funny. Just coincidence. This one, ooh. Anybody recognize that sitting position? Okay, that's a lotus position. That is solid gold. And see around the base and the pedestal? It connects Indonesian and Hinduism to the whole message of spiritualism. That's what's amazing about this. It's not their God. In the article, Kincaid said this is their God they worshipped. I don't think so, because there's no evidence in the hieroglyphics that this is their God. It's part of an energy situation that they were working with. Energy fields. The lotus position and the flames coming out behind it, it's enlightenment. It's how you can meditate and open up your third eye, your pineal. It's not about religion. It's about connecting to source. Does that make sense? Thousands and thousands of these polished urns filled with all manner of artifacts. Now you kind of know why the Egyptian government wanted these. It's ours. It ties into the pharaohs. Guess what was in most of these urns? Anybody want to guess? Dirt? Guts? Some were, absolutely. They were disemboweled. But a lot of them contained written papyrus scroll material. Whoa. Do you know what Kincaid was saying now? This is world changing. Hey, I don't know about you out there, but I kind of feel ripped off. Think about this. Talk about a tourist attraction. What are we paying taxes for? To have this stuff hidden from us? I feel like I've been hijacked. And I got something inserted without Vaseline. I'm sorry, that's just me. Now, this is amazing. Room after room of mummified warriors. Egyptian warriors. See how high and how tall this chamber is? These mummified remains was put in a standing upright position on a stone ledge with carvings come out. And the inscriptions above them with their names. What a way to be interred if you're a war hero. This is better than the Vietnam War Memorial, in my opinion. What a great thing. Okay, look at this. The children and the women were mummified. Okay? This is an example of the sarcophagus of an infant, mummified and wrapped in a chamber. But the amazing thing is the wood. How many of you have been to Egypt? How many pine trees are on the hills above Egypt? There are cedars in Lebanon. Guess what? Analyze this wood and guess what it's made of? Ponderosa pines from the north rim of Fredonia, the Grand Canyon. What's amazing, the infants were all put into these carved Ponderosa pine sarcophagi, but what the story you don't know about is a lot of the common women and children sarcophagi in Egypt are made of the same Ponderosa pine. How did it come from the north rim of the Grand Canyon all the way over? Do you remember the story of Joseph? Do you recognize that all of the agriculture along the Nile was pretty much full? He had to find another source to provide grain for the coming famine. And guess what happened at the north rim of the Grand Canyon? Well, I got ahead of myself a little bit. This is one of the ones that, whoa. It depicts, see the rays coming down? They actually look like little genetic sperm coming down to fertilize an egg. But what it's saying is this is a depiction of the fallen sons of God and their mutated forms, which in the Bible in Genesis 6 called the Nephilim. This explains how the Nephilim were formed. Earth women giving birth to these rather large, strange-looking creatures that grew up to be giants. It's depicting the genetic modifications that were happening. A lot of story here. So I thought I had another slide here, I apologize, but going back to, and I guess I omitted this, because on the north rim of the Grand Canyon, there's been a lot of ancient granaries found. Ancient. They thought, could this be Anasazi or cliff dwellers? No, they were way, way earlier than Anasazi. In fact, in a stone box on the grid, there's all these agricultural canals that were put in anciently. They found evidence that were Egyptian. They massively had grain agriculture on the North Rim, anciently. The time of Joseph, by the way. They even found extant, existing wheat kernels. That was amazing because they still sprouted. They were in such a state of preservation, they still sprouted, and it was a very, very, very high yield variety of wheat with large kernels. Amazing, isn't it? You don't know this stuff is not common knowledge. So I'm kind of trying to wrap this up a little bit. If you look at some of the, in the Grand Canyon National Park, you see some really kind of strange names. What's in the name? Well, this monolith around the Colorado River that flows up on the rim of the Grand Canyon is called the Temple of Zoroaster. Egyptian. Who named it and why? That just one example? No. The Tower of Setoprene. Do your homework. Who was Setoprene? How about this one? The Tower of Ra. Yeah, like I said, I can't make this stuff. Who named these Egyptian formations in the Grand Canyon? Who did? There's a better picture of Anubis, hardened copper statue. And this is the grandest one of all. Check this out. Grand Canyon National Park. The Temple of Isis. Really? Look at the bottom of the Temple of Isis. See those cliffs? Interesting indentations. So that's my final picture and my final slide. Are the mosquitoes biting out there tonight? Do you want me to keep going a little bit with the narrative, or just keep going? Okay, like I said, if I keep talking and people quit listening and falling asleep, I'll give you some Salmonex, some caffeine. No. So any questions on the slides? Yeah, go ahead.
Are these publicly available pictures?
The question was, are these publicly available pictures? They were on my blog. The quick answer to that is my blog was shut down without any notice. I was censored in 2019. All the stuff was taken off, and I've been trying to retrieve it. Dr. Laney helped me give some replacements, but the big bulk that was on my public blog was public information. Okay? Of course, it's all a hoax. I'm a big, giant hoaxster. Right? Yes, Wayne, go ahead.
Can you speak a little further to the tunnel system, maybe about Romania, the chamber?
Oh, Wayne, you're going to get me into trouble. But it's a great question. Thank you. He came up afterwards. By the way, this is Wayne with Phenomenon. Just want to say thanks for coming. Thanks for coming.
What was your question?
Wow. You might have seen my interview on that. Okay? And last year I talked and touched on that a little bit. One of my good friends who I've known for years and years is a guy named Peter Moon. He's out of, his company's called Sky Books, out of New York City. If you want to know the big answer to that, to Wayne's question.
Repeat the question.
The question is, what about the tunnels in other places like in Romania? Great question. Most people know about that. Let me just give you a little background history. In Romania, that's the home of what? Transylvania and Vlad Dracul. You know, what does Romania have in common with Utah? Does anybody know that? Besides a crazy man called True Law. There's a mountain range in Romania that runs east and west. It's ancient in its form. It's called the Bucegi mountain range. It's spelled B-U-C-E-G-I, Bucegi. If you look at pictures of that east-west running mountain range, the closest thing to it in the American continent, the U.S. continent, is the Uinta Range. Most every other mountain range goes north and south, right? East-west. And why? Because of the ancient history of east-west ranges. So the question to answer, the book that you want to read is called Transylvanian Sunrise by Peter Moon. He wrote the book, Transylvania Sunrise. There's a series of books that tells the story that will make your jaw drop. This is not science fiction. This is science fact. You have to ask yourself, why did Romania become included into NATO? He explains that in depth. It's what they found in the ancient tunnels, much like what we're talking about right here in the Grand Canyon. Wow. The ancient ones, the Nephilim, 6 digits. Hands, 6 toes on the feet, double rows of teeth. The technology that they discovered there as a holographic hall of records. Whoa, yeah, it's not science fiction, it's fact. You just don't know about it. So read the book, it's non-fiction, and it's amazing. I know this because when they found the hall of records, now wait, I'm not going to hold back. I'm not holding back. When they found the holographic hall of records, it was 2006 and 7. The U.S. Special Forces were involved in that, and it's high technology. The fellow that's in the book, his name is Cesar Brad. Cesar Brad contacts me in Utah. He has a heavy accent, but he speaks English. I don't speak Romanian. He invites me to come to Romania and be a part of the story. Why would I want to go to Romania? I don't think so. Who arranged that? Dr. Laney. So you got to talk to Trua. You know why? Hold the phone. The holographic hall of records talks about a central hub of 7 caverns that are found right here in the Uinta Mountains. And this guy has the mineral rights to them. Do you think the government wants this information out? You know how many people have died over the holographic hall of records? And why? Why? So it tells you who we are. It tells us we're not some race from some alien progenitors who are coming back as our overlords and control us. No, no. We are divinely made by a loving Heavenly Father. And that information, like the sons of Joseph, they don't want that out. See? Turn the lights out on me. That's
Come on, John.
that's the good signal. So yeah, what time is it?
There you go.
Oh, thank you. That's Transylvania Sunrise. Radu Cinema is a story with Peter Moon. It is non-fiction, ladies and gentlemen. And you're going to have a hard time believing. I submit you read it 2, 3, 4 times. The sequel, the next, look at the lines on the mountains. The Sphinx, all of that's there. Tying in. The next sequel is what they uncovered as they went and explored the tunnel system. The tunnel system went first where? Under the Sphinx of Egypt. Joseph had the key. Once he found that under the Sphinx of Egypt, the tunnel system, then the maps were complete, coming to the Grand Canyon and to the Uinta East-West Range. You starting to connect the dots? I want to just conclude with a few things, and I'll get your questions. Let me get to this point. I believe this firmly, what the Apostle Paul, St. Paul wrote, so wise, we wrestle not against flesh and blood. We wrestle not against our brothers and sisters. We don't do that. We all have difference of opinion. That's wonderful. We don't wrestle against humans. Our beef is against the principalities and powers of the earth. And you understand what that means in the Greek and even the Aramaic? It means the unseen forces underneath. That's who we battle against. And when you understand that, everything else starts to make sense. If you have me back next year, and Terry, give me another subject, and I'll try and make a presentation about it, okay? I want you to look up John D'Souza, John D. Souza. His latest book is called just simply The Extra Dimensionals. The Extra Dimensionals. For want of a better explanation, John D'Souza is retired FBI special agent. He's, as I've talked to him before on the phone, he hasn't been on my radio show yet. He was kind of clear schedule. But listen, he says if you understand the truth about extra dimensionals, you understand everything. It's the key. Whether it's the UFO question, whether it's the phenomenons, the phenomena conferences, it all starts to make sense. See if you can book John D'Souza as one of your guests, Wayne. I mean, it's amazing. His book is top on the Amazon bestseller list now. He is the real-life version of the X-Files Fox Mulder. And he told me, he says, go back and watch those first 2 seasons of X-Files. Oh, I'm never an X-Files fan, but I did what he said, and I'm watching those, and I'm like, wow. Predictive programming, or they're telling us the truth? Oh my. They even talked in one episode about the coming pandemic and the vaccine that would be issued to change our DNA. You can't make this stuff up, right? John D'Souza is right on point with this. Question, yes?
Yeah, does the Smithsonian recognize that statue of Anuba for where it came from the Grand Canyon? Do they recognize that, or do they not? Absolutely
not. It's not. It's underground. It's not. The question was, does the Smithsonian recognize that statue? They don't recognize any of this. That's the problem. You know, as far as they say, well, true, I pulled this up off some Egyptian website. No, not true. But that's that's their plausible deniability. Yes, sir.
I met you last year and I asked you mathematical questions.
Mm-hmm.
Today I'm going to ask you if you are aware of the 10-5-6-5 type bonds that hold our DNA together.
Whoa. How much time do we have? That's a good question. Yeah, see, the whole double helix in the matrix, it's designed as an energy system. And yeah, those are sacred numbers. And sacred geometry is all part of this. Make no mistake with this. So if the premise is that we were fearfully and wonderfully made by a divine creator, he made our DNA for a specific code. Now, what makes your hair the color it is, all that's part of a genome, right? And do you realize during the Clinton administration, our wonderful government spent millions of dollars for supercomputers to map out the Human Genome Project, right? Why? Again, that's the big question. Why? Dr. Laney gave me the answer in our discussions. We talked philosophy He says, he knows these guys. He calls them miscreants. They wanted the Genome Project during the Clinton administration to be able to prove Darwinian theory of evolution, that there's no God and the heavens judging us. And they were searching for that to prove the missing link that we came from the monkeys. Now, there's some people like Mark that I could say maybe they did. I'm sorry. But they didn't find that. They found instead what they called, and this was on the front page cover story of Newsweek and other big magazines, they called it the God gene. Remember that? The God gene. It's called the VMAT2 gene. That stands for vesicular monoamine transport 2. What that means is 2% of your DNA, your genome, is that structure. That's what makes us different than an orangutan, a monkey, or a Bigfoot that comes and goes. They're missing that because it's a spiritual connection. They found that that VMAT2 gene is what connects us to Source. If we're open and honest and willing to seek Him, He'll come and make Himself known to us. That's why it's called the God gene. Here's the big secret. The Moderna modified RNA is CRISPR technology. I don't have time to go into all this. From the Chinese to target people's VMAT2 gene. It's edited out completely from your human genome. I don't want to be political. This is a tie-in, really. You see, they want to sever connection to our Creator. When you edit out through CRISPR technology the vesicular monoamine transport gene, VMAT2, what happens is this. You still function. You still have hunger. Your body functions work okay. You still have to go to the bathroom. But what happens is your frontal lobes, your pineal gland is closed off. You have no spiritual connection to deity, and you operate out of your reptilian brain stem. The best way to describe it, and the scientists like Dr. Laney, who told me all about this 15 years ago now, he knew their plan. He said, they're targeting the VMAT2 genes. I know it, because I have security cams in all their high-level meetings with the military-industrial complex. That's their agenda. It's a bioweapon to lose people's spirituality. The best way to describe it is people that have an edited VMAT2 gene, they've lost the ability to love, care about another person, put another person's cares above them. And how else can you function as a married couple? If you don't care about your spouse for 39 or 40 years, you're being selfish. Matthew in the Bible, chapter 24, I'll leave you with this. The last days, he said, before he comes again, quote, the love of many will wax cold. He didn't say the love of all, but he said, as in the days of Noah, so will it be in the coming of the Son of Man. The love of many will wax cold. What does that mean? He just described exactly what the VMAT2 suppression does. It's me first. I'll cut you off in traffic. I don't care about you. It's about me getting what I need. There's a problem with this in our society, ladies and gentlemen. It's becoming more and more pervasive. Give somebody else what they need, and you'll probably get it showered back in many, many forms in return. That's my philosophy. I just want to, that's a picture into me. I treat other people the way I hope they treat me. Okay, last question, and we'll wrap up. Yeah, go ahead.
Joseph's father, another prophet, gave him a blessing just before he died. I want your opinion on this. And his roots shall run over the wall, clear to America.
That's exactly Dr. Laney. I don't have time to share, but he wrote a very powerful letter to President Barack Obama. Yeah, the clone. Maybe next year I'll talk about that, the cloning processing. But what Dr. Laney wrote was powerful. Said we, the seed line of Joseph, we're spread over all continents. We just don't know who we are. His impassioned plea was a presidential order to release this information from the Smithsonian so we know who we are. Powerful letter. So I remember first I said, dedicated to the sons of Joseph. See? And again, it's not so much about bloodline, it's about what your heart is. Now, do you love the truth? Do you want to ask questions? Do you want to find the truth, or is it not important to you? For me, my name is true. I have the curse of Apollonius. I got to tell the truth, or try to. I may be mistaken, I may have false information that I don't know better, but I will try and tell you the truth. I promise you that. Mark, we're done. Thanks for listening, ladies and gentlemen. Drive safe. Go home safe.
Thank you, Drew. We really appreciate it. Now, let me tell you, Drew, are you good at people coming to grab you and talk to you for a little bit?
Just don't kidnap me.
Yeah, they're good. And Robert Kreider is back. He was back right there. If you wanted to go grab him and talk to him, he said he's willing for questions and stuff. Otherwise, we let him come up here, but it's only got a short time. Oh, there it is. And then we're going to start taking all this stuff down. Thank you for coming. We thank everybody that helped do this. We appreciate the donations.
Remember last year?
Looks like we got enough of that for next year.